Welcome to another episode of Conversation at Foothills by ISRA. What are the maritime implications, in your view, as a maritime security expert, could be in future for this Strait of Hormuz?
The world's best navy, the world's best military has not been able to seize control of the Strait of Hormuz out of Iran, and that's a shock to the whole world.
What are those key choke points which are now, I would say, talk of the town?
General understanding among the international community that the straits should not be levied or toll should not be put on them.
Strait of Hormuz is not only a part of Iran but also of Oman. How US is going to have exercise its control on it?
Iran has emerged as a sole guarantor in Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, and perhaps some part of Gulf of Oman also.
This all scenario is about containment of China. Is it true?
Ultimate objective of an incumbent superpower is to remain superpower. And wherever it feels a potential challenger, it actually goes and destabilizes that region.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Conversation at Foothills by ISRA. In today's episode, we are going to discuss about maritime security and sea lines of communication or sea lanes of communication. As you all know that maritime security and sea lines of communication are crucial for global economic stability, as more than 80% of world trade and 90 to 95% of digital connectivity or undersea cables are through maritime routes. Securing these routes involve protecting trade, ensuring freedom of navigation, and addressing threats like piracy, territorial disputes, and naval blockade in key choke points. In today's episode, we are very delighted to have with us Rear Admiral retired Syed Faisal Ali Shah, who is a seasoned expert on policy making, strategic planning, Middle East and maritime affairs. He has served more than 35 years in Pakistan Navy, and his expertise includes blue economy, coastal development in Pakistan, and an understanding of Iranian politics and culture. Why Iranian politics and culture? Because he has served as diplomat in Iran for more than 3 years. Very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Admiral Saab, recently this maritime security has become a subject of our life. Why? Because the reverberation of this US-Israel-Iran war are felt across the globe. How do you see this situation and link it to the maritime security?
Thank you for having me in this podcast. I think you have rightly pointed out that the reverberations of this war are being felt around the corner of the world, and that's only for the fact that a very important artery, a very important choke point in Indian Ocean has been subjected to seizure of control or the clashes or the conflict between US and Iran, and that's the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of world energy resource passes through Strait of Hormuz. Around 40% of world trade passes through Strait of Hormuz. The countries that are living in this region are severely dependent on the Strait of Hormuz for their livelihood. So everybody is feeling the effects what are being generated out of the Strait of Hormuz, and that actually makes the Strait of Hormuz something of significance, not only as a water body or a waterway, but I think an area that is going to redefine geopolitics hereafter, after this war is over. It is going to redefine the region, actually. It is going to redefine the regime of controlling Strait of Hormuz or the overall profile of Strait of Hormuz. So many things are in the offing, I see, because of this conflict in this area. And if you see, Iran always was cognizant of the importance of the Strait of Hormuz and its leverage over it because of its geography. So Iran has prepared itself in Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz more than anywhere else in its entire geography, in its homeland. And that's what has come out, actually. And if you see, in this war, the geography has actually defeated the technology. The world's best navy, the world's best military has not been able to seize control of the Strait of Hormuz out of Iran, and that's a shock to the whole world. So the whole world has witnessed actually a choking of a choke point that serves more the countries outside this region than the countries inside this region, and that's what I think the world is going to look into after this war is over, and that's what I feel is going to change so many things, not only in this region but beyond the region also.
Admiral Saab, while explaining this geopolitical scenario and the hegemony which holds in this region particularly, what are those key choke points which are now, I would say, talk of the town, and in future they can also be choked like Strait of Hormuz and can be discussed for the maritime security of the worldwide?
You see, for the general understanding, I would say that every strait or every canal that is dug in sea becomes a choke point automatically.
Can you
Because,
explain a difference between a strait and a canal for our
yes,
audience?
a strait is a natural waterway, narrow waterway which actually connects two larger water bodies. For example, there's a Strait of Hormuz connects Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. So, a Strait of Hormuz is a narrower passage than Gulf of Oman and Persian Gulf. That's why it becomes a choke point. That's how is Bab al Mandab. That's how is Malacca Strait. Now, these are natural waterways. And then there are canals like Suez Canal, Panama Canal. These canals are dug actually for convenience of mankind to take a shorter route vis-a-vis a longer route. And these are dug with, some investment. Through investment, it is dug through the property or the territory of some country, and that's how you put levy or toll on canals. But there is a general understanding among the international community that the straits should not be levied or toll should not be put on them.
Right. Uh, Admiral Saab, correct me that in during the peacetime, these choke points serve as a route for maritime trade or global trade, and during the war times, they act as the choke points, right? So the disruption of slocks can have an immediate cascading effects on the global economy, and especially the recent attacks, maybe in the past for the Gulf of Aden or the Red Sea, and now particularly this about Strait of Hormuz. How do you see that the increased operational cost is witnessed around the globe, especially with regards to the fuel prices, energy pipelines, or the supply which are going to the worldwide? And then these are the significant trade disruptions. How do you see that these choke points now in future will be requiring the continuous naval presence, especially by the countries which are sharing their borders or the territorial waters in these choke points? And also for our awareness, please do tell us about what is the difference between international waters or the territorial waters, because in present day scenario we are seeing that a lot of discussion is going on that Strait of Hormuz is not only a part of Iran but also of Oman. How US is going to have its exercise its control on it. So please, if you can explain it.
First thing that straits or choke points, they are not only disturbed when there is a conflict. There's an armed conflict between two countries. These are disturbed even when there are non-traditional threats arising over there. Like Bab al Mandab has long been disturbed because of piracy, and that's why you see international coalitions to curb that. There have been coalitions to curb maritime terrorism because those have affected certain areas like Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. Also, there has been a coalition force over there also. So it's not only that the conflict brings up this situation, but it can be in the peacetime also when your choke points require security, and that security mandates presence of naval forces or the security agencies,
And if
maritime
I may
security
add into
agencies.
it, that combined task forces are also responsible for this
Yes, combined maritime forces. Yes,
security of these
yes,
choke points.
yes. They have actually formulated these dark forces because of these reasons. It was not merely because of conflict between the countries, but it was because of non-traditional threats. So that is one thing, that security and safety of all these choke points and straits is mandatory, not only during peacetime, but also wartime, and that mandates actually presence of certain regime there. Now, there have been straits in the world where some agreements have already taken place, mandating the country which lies in the close proximity of that strait to provide certain rights to the shipping passing through that strait, and there have been certain rights delineated or delegated to that country also. So there have been precedents like that also, but the Strait of Hormuz does not have any agreement like that. Uh, you brought up the question of territorial waters and international waters. Territorial waters, for the general understanding, I'm telling people that it is around 12 nautical miles from your coast. It is actually 12 nautical miles from your baseline, but making people understand what's the baseline is tricky. So I would say it is around 12 nautical miles from the coastline. And in those 12 nautical miles, you have sovereign jurisdiction over those waters, not only over those waters, but on the seabed, in the water, over the surface of water, and even in air. So it's just like you have sovereign right over your land piece, you have sovereign right over that 12 nautical miles of water body also. Beyond that, it's international water. So the problem in the Strait of Hormuz is that it is so constricted that it falls in the territorial waters of Oman and Iran. And if you go as per the definition of territorial waters, they both have the right to have their jurisdiction applied on the Strait of Hormuz. They have not done so far, but they can do that. They have the right to do that, and that's the actually point of conflict between Iran and US.
Admiral Saab, often there comes a question that Strait of Hormuz is totally blocked. But I have heard you talking about it, that no, it is not the complete blockade. Otherwise, no ship or no vessel can pass through it. But it's just the control which Iran actually is exercising on this Strait of Hormuz. What are the maritime implications, in your view, as a maritime security expert, could be in future for this Strait of Hormuz? If I may say, or if I may add into it, that after this episode, or once the war is over, not only this Strait of Hormuz, but about rest of the world where all these choke points are present, countries would also start thinking about this, uh, putting up levy and taxes on it.
You are right. You see, we need to understand why Iran is actually stressing upon putting toll or levy on the Strait of Hormuz. There is something in the background. Iran has been under sanctions. Iran's assets have been frozen around the world. Their SWIFT port has been limited. FDI is restricted in their country, and their oil and gas is not allowed to be sold at the price where the world does it. So they need to have some revenue, continuous source of revenue for their economy, and they know that Strait of Hormuz provides that affordability and that convenience to them, that they can have a permanent source of revenue contributing to their economy. So that's what they are leveraging actually right now. But I feel that if they are provided with relief on other side, like sanctions and assets frozen and things like that, I think that will not remain a very important thing for them, or very important demand from. That's my personal opinion. But you are right that the world, having gone through all this and having witnessed what can be done at a choke point or a strait, I think the world at large will be more conscious on this. And you see, UK has formed a coalition of 35 nations to think about it and come up with some solution to have permanence of freedom of navigation along choke points and straits. And I think that is going to be a core point after this war is over, for discussion by the international community that how to ensure freedom of action through these straits and choke points forever. Now, there could be multiple options. Like you give these rights to the states who own these or who are in the proximity of these straits and choke points. You give them rights. So then it can be replicated everywhere in the world, and that can actually increase the cost of overall trade in the world. Okay, so that's one option. The other option is you make a coalition of forces or coalition of countries who can actually monitor and surveil these areas and let that not happen again. That is another option. But will that be without kinetic operations or not? That's questionable. Another option could be that you redress the grievances of the countries who want to have such a system, like I have just mentioned that Iran wants it because of some background. So you redress those grievances and you don't let Iran think about it. You don't let any country think about it. Why should we have these tolls and taxes on these straits and choke points? So there can be multiple options, but the point is that the world is going to think about it very seriously, and they have to ensure freedom of action at any given time.
All right. Uh, if I can say that what your experience says working with Iranian, that they are going to be a sole guarantor in this maritime security of the region.
Particularly talking about this region, I personally feel that before this war, the maritime security of this region was wrestled between Iran and US and its allies. That's why you see so many presence of naval ships of different countries here, naval bases here, and then so many other bases on land also. Their continuous presence here has been for ensuring freedom of navigation and things like that. And you go through the Indo-Pacific strategy also of US, there is so many times mention of freedom of navigation anywhere in the world, but specifically in this area also. But after this war, I feel that uh, Iran has emerged as a sole guarantor uh, in waters in Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, and perhaps some part of Gulf of Oman also, because it has retained the control of Strait of Hormuz despite all the threats, warnings, actions, calls around the world. I think it has not been able to release it. So uh, uh, the world knows that Strait of Hormuz can be at any given time controlled by Iranians very easily, and it will be very difficult for the world to get it out of its control. And that's why I'm saying that the world will have to think about not only Strait of Hormuz, but any other strait or choke point in the world which have been so far peaceful and have not troubled the world the way people have seen the Strait of Hormuz has actually pinched us. So something new is going to come.
So you have mentioned about this Indo-Pacific strategy. If I can say this all scenario is about containment of China, is it going to be, is it true?
I think very interesting question and intriguing one also. Uh, People often say that US has come to this region for this war without any objective, but I don't agree with that. And I base my arguments on two, three things. Uh, some historical evidences also and some documentary evidences also. If you go through US national security strategy, which was promulgated in November 25, uh, it has enlisted some foreign policy core objectives. And one of the core objectives is about this region, Middle East, that we will not let any adversarial power to take control of the oil and gas reserves and the waterways they pass through. So adversarial power has not been defined in that document, but regionally you find it Iran, globally China. And this whole has actually been preceded by another incident in Venezuela, and then few others before that also. So what does that indicate? Now, if you have read the book of George Friedman, The Next 100 Years, He clearly defined that the ultimate objective of an incumbent superpower is to remain superpower. And wherever it feels a potential challenger, it actually goes and destabilizes that region. That's a strategy of disruption, actually. That it has been historical. It's nothing specific to US. It has been uh, like this with any superpower in the world. Now, if you just analyze uh, for the last 47 years or so, maybe few years less, US actually has been able to maintain its influence in the region, uh, political, economic, and military, making Iran as a threat, turning Iran into a threat for the countries of the region. It was only in 20 from year 2020 to 2024 that the Middle Eastern countries, Arab Middle Eastern countries, fell second to the Europe in purchase of American weapon systems. It was because of Russia-Ukraine war. But otherwise, if you go back to 25, 30 years, they have been, purchasing American weapon systems to the max. Last year, trillions of dollars were actually concluded, agreements of trillions of dollars were concluded for purchase of these weapon systems. So, America wants to retain its influence in this region, number one. It's it serves its purpose for political, economic, and military influence. It serves its purpose for having petrodollars from this region, and that it does making Iran as a threat. Now, America has a strategic objective of coming to this region because it has defined that objective in national security strategy. I just mentioned, which came out in November 25. So it had a strategic objective of coming to this region. There is no doubt about it. The timings, the modus operandi, and the calculations might not have been suitable to US more than Israel. That's why it is said that US is fighting the war of Israel. I say US is fighting its own war. It might be wrong time frame. It's doing it. So US has come with a purpose. Now, after the war, I see, interestingly, that Iran has emerged as a stronger country in this region.
Yes.
Okay. So if Iran is strong in this region, so are the prospects of US remaining in this region.
Yes.
Okay. So US, in my point of view, is not going to go back from this region because it has come with a purpose of, twisting the arm of China.
What if I
And
connect it to your point, which we have mentioned earlier, that if US is here in the region just for Iran, what about those regional alliances which were born because of Indo-Pacific strategy? If we talk about AUKUS or especially the future of I2U2 after this recent conflict, how do you see it?
I think I2U2 is going to be pronounced after this. You will see a pronounced role of I2U2 and its pronounced functioning also in this region. And
So,
that's what
sorry, pardon me for just want to ask that is US going to learn any lesson from this slog if it is going to strengthen I to U2? Does that mean that it has not learned any lesson from this closure of or the blockade of Strait of Hormuz? They actually will use Israel as a weapon or Israel as a face to be a face of I to U2, or how do you see it?
I2U2 also has India. It also has UAE. So Israel will perhaps not be acceptable to the regional countries coming forward and taking a
Can it be
lead
connected to
position.
the Iran conflict also?
Israel
Yes.
connected to Israel.
Of course, it will be like, I feel, or I may be wrong, that it can be connected to the ideological conflict between, which is present between
It
Israel
is,
and
you see,
Iran.
Israel has its own interests in this conflict, and of course, we just can't dehyphenate Israel from this conflict. It serves Israel's purpose the best at the moment. That's what I'm saying. That the timings, the modus operandi, the miscalculations, they all go in favor of Israel, not in the favor of US. But both have their own interest in this region. So when you talk about our I2U2, I say I2U2 will be a tool to further the stay and influence of US in this region. And that's what you see from the overall profile that India has maintained during this conflict. It's obvious from that also, because India is sitting on fence with its inclination towards US and Israel, and it's waiting for the war booty after the war is over. And war booty India perceives is in the shape of I2U2, the role it might get in the shape of I2U2.
If we see that SLOCs are about digital connectivity, and on the other side, you see the role of AI coming in between, how do you see the future of warfare, particularly in this maritime domain? What role disruptive technologies are going to play vis-a-vis the present scenario? How do you see, let's suppose, after these, you have discussed earlier that the rest of the countries which have the choke points might be thinking about on the pattern. So how do you see the future of these disruptive technologies for this maritime domain?
I think one thing that I mentioned earlier also, that when you come to the choke points or you come to the straits or things like that, I think geography defeats technology. That's one thing that we have learned. And that's, I think, true for any other choke point or strait anywhere in the world, canal for that matter also. So countries are going to make use of their geographies now. They are going to, if they have not, they are going to think a lot seriously on how to make use of their geography, like what Iran has done. Emerging technologies are part and parcel of our life. If we deny their existence, or if we deny their usefulness or otherwise in our lives, I think that will be foolish. So they are going to be part and parcel. And you see, military affairs is one thing which is dynamic in nature. It is continuously developing technologically, strategically, tactically, operationally, in all domains. So if you don't adopt the emerging technologies or the upcoming processes and systems, I think you tend to lag behind, and you don't want, actually. This is your first line of defense of everything: your economy, your politics, your stature, your anything.
Well, this also brings me to a question for you, that where is the maritime security, or where does the maritime security of Pakistan stands now vis-a-vis the present time, the recent scenario, what is happening around the globe, particularly in this region? The capability and the strength of Iran, which it has, despite knowing that it had sanctions on it, but still it has been able to defeat US, or somehow been able to control it to an extent. So how do you see the future of Pakistan in this region, particularly with regards to the maritime security?
Two, three things I would like to mention. First, that the biggest factor that has played in Iran's defiance or standing by against all threats is the indigenization that they have gone through.
Right.
I have seen them. They manufacture from needle to a ship, and their industrial capacity is awesome. So I think their indigenization is something that has played the role. Their R&D, their investment in R&D, I think that is something that is very pronounced, and Pakistan must look into that. Another thing, if you take maritime security as a very wholesome concept, so defense and security both come in that domain. So as far as defense is concerned, we have displayed a, a wonderful show in May 2025 against our adversary, which were 5-6 times bigger than us. They could not move their whole armada more than, ahead of 700 kilometers. They just could not move an inch out of that. So we could deter them, and it was not only intangible deterrence, but a very tangible deterrence, because while they must have been planning to attack Pakistan, as their media was actually saying, and their political leadership was asking they must have come up to a risk calculation matrix where they found that if they attacked, the more devastating effects would be when Pakistan responds. So I think that deterred
Well,
that.
this reminds me also that Indian forces came to Karachi also via sea.
Karachi and Lahore also. They came to
Yes,
Lahore port also, which
yes.
does not exist. So defense is okay. As far as maritime security is concerned, which is more towards non-traditional threats, I think that is something worrisome for Pakistan after this war. Because if you see, uh, before this war, Pakistan and Iranian maritime security apparatus had it worked very closely to counter non-traditional threats out of our coast, like illegal trafficking, smuggling, and maritime terrorism, and things like that. So, if you say that President Trump says that I have depleted their maritime security capacity, so Pakistan will have more burden of looking after a greater area now alone without the help from our Iranian neighbors. So Pakistan must actually gear up for that time. When the war is over, when the forces go back, the non-traditional threats will emerge again, and we'll have to look after a greater area with greater vigilance and surveillance. So
And
for that, we need more
yes, and I
capability
think
also.
during the military exercises, which are conducted often bilaterally or multilaterally, this is going to be a new area on which different countries are going to think about it. That if the choke points are blocked, how they are going to not only support their economy but also their military also. Admiral Saab, just one more thoughts on the international law, because coming back to this present US Israel Iran conflict, where is the international law and what does it say about the Convention of Law of Seas? What is this convention all about? Uh, is superpower being able to exercise that law, or is that law gives leverage to Iran? Can you please explain it?
United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea was actually enacted in 1982, and Iran is signatory to that, but has not ratified it. But and by the way, US is also not member of that UN clause. So, but Iran, by and large, has not actually acted against the provisions of UN clause. I mean, despite the fact the UN clause provides Iran the leverage to control the Strait of Hormuz, it never did that. Now this war has legitimized uh, Iran's claim for the control of Strait of Hormuz. This is what I feel. Had this war not happened, I think Iran would not have uh, claimed it for a few more years. So one thing that has happened because of this war, UN clause actually defines territorial waters and exclusive economic zone, continental shelf, and things like that, and the rights of passage. Uh, it defines everything what is happening at sea. It also says that if, as I elaborated earlier, that the territorial waters uh, are your sovereign waters. They are your sovereign right, actually. And that's what actually Iran makes use of. One thing that I want to highlight here is the difference between the demands or the actions of US and Iran is very stark and is all about the legality. It's all about the legality. This is what I personally feel.
And if you please may add into it that how this law holds for landlocked countries also.
Yes. It also provides, UN clause also provides actually leverage to the landlocked countries that um, uh, who do not have sea with them. So their neighbors actually bound to provide them access to the sea. So this is the leverage that it provides. But what I was trying to make you understand is the difference in legality of actions and demands on both sides. I personally feel that whatever Iran has done and has demanded is under certain kind of international framework or legal system or charter, things like that. Whereas the US demands and actions have all been beyond beyond legality, beyond any international charter or beyond any international framework or beyond any international regime. And I think that is the main point of concern and conflict between both of them. That if they both come under any charter, any framework, or any legal system, I think things will be easier for both of them and for the rest of the world. So I personally feel that if, for instance, Strait of Hormuz, Iran refers to UN clause, although it has not ratified it. US has also not ratified it. But if UN clause is taken as a reference, I think it will be easier for everybody to assimilate the perspective of each side. And that will actually help understanding the issue and help coming to resolution. That goes with the UN Charter also. That goes with the international legal framework also, in any other international system, NPT for that matter. So if that mother document is referred to and negotiations are held under that overall ambit, I think it will be easier for everybody to come to the conclusion.
So, do you think in future countries will think about this international law and the conventions also, and they will try to adapt to it?
I think this is, I would say,
But this is going to be a must for them to avoid any kind of conflict
this
at
is
sea,
must, and
particularly.
I think this is the point. This is the time that the world should take a stand on these issues, on this actually perspective, that uh, we need to decide if there has to be some international system or there does not have to be an international system. Where do we want to fall? We want to live under some international guarantees or system, or we just want to have the law of the jungle, that the might is right. I think this is the point the world should actually decide it.
Thank you very much, Admiral Saab, for joining us in today's podcast. From this episode, we have learnt about maritime security and sea lines of communication, which are indeed crucial for global economy and referred as lifelines of global trade. Signing off from today's episode. Thank you very much.